welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV screen to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well, let's learn English together. And hello, Cleveland. Are you all having fun? Oh, sorry, this isn't Cleveland, is it? No. I'll say, sorry about that. Okay, I think I remember where we are. Let me just check something. I just need to get my bearings. Now I'm starting to remember. I'm starting to recall. We're in a TV studio, aren't we? Yes, that's right. And I normally teach you something, don't I? Yes, some sort of language, isn't it? Yes, a very useful language. No, don't tell me. Let me try and remember. Is it Latin? No? Oh, so a useful language but not Latin. This is a tricky one. I don't know. Oh no, wait a minute, I can feel a memory returning. English, that's right, isn't it? I'm teaching you English, not Latin. Am I right? I am, aren't I? Yes, and when you're right, you're right. So, all right. Let's turn to the left and now turn to the right. It's all right. Right. Let's get started on today's Latin lesson. Sorry. English lesson. I must try to remember that. Auribus teneo lupum barbe tenus sapiente. Sorry. Force of habit. Okay, sorry. Normal service will resume shortly. About now, in fact. Now, I think we're back to normal. So, let me ask you a question. Do you remember what we were talking about yesterday? Aha, you do. Good. Okay, so what were we talking about yesterday? Yes, that's right. Yesterday and the day before yesterday, we looked at comparatives, didn't we? Yes, we looked at comparatives, and we also had another look at how we can use the as form to talk about things being the same or similar, or things being different or dissimilar. Okay, good. Now, are you ready for today's lesson? I bet you are. And today, we're going to start looking at something new. Today, we're going to study the future. But what's that? I can hear someone saying something. We've already looked at the future. Well, yes, that's true. But, well, there are two very important points we need to remember. Number one, we don't look at something once and then never look at it again, do we? No, of course not. We go back to revise what we learned and we study the same things more than once to make sure that we understand them and to make sure that we can use them correctly, that we can use English properly. Okay, so that is point one. Point two is that this is something new. We've studied the future tense in English. We've looked at the idea of will and going to. But today, this is something different. This isn't will. This isn't going to. No. This is the present continuous. Now, let's just let that sink in. Let the penny drop. Yes, you heard me correctly. Your ears aren't lying to you. I did say what you thought I said. Let me repeat myself just so you're sure. We're going to use the present continuous to talk about the future. Okay, now let's just cast our minds back a little to when we first met the present continuous. Do you remember what we learned about the present continuous? Well, let's think about the easiest part of the present continuous. Its form. How do we make it? Do you remember? Well, it's simple. The present continuous is the verb to be and the ing form of a verb. I'm talking, you're running, he's watching TV, for example. Simple, isn't it? The only two places where we have to be careful are where? That's right. The first place we have to be careful is with the verb to be. The first person singular and the third person singular forms of the verb to be are different. All the other forms are the same. Are, you are, we are, you are, and they are. But the first person singular is I am, and the third person singular is he, she, it is. Okay, we know that we normally use the short version. So, I'm, you're, he's, she's, it's, we're, you're, and they're. Good. Now, what about the other area where we have to be careful? Correct, a chicken pot noodle with soya sauce. We have to be a little bit careful with the spelling of the ing form. Now, we know about English spelling changes for nouns in the plural. And we know about changing the spelling for the third person singular in the present simple. And this week, we learned we have to be careful if the verb ends in E. If the verb ends in an E, like, for example, make, or drive, or bake, then we remove the E before we add ing. It's not making, it's making. It's not driving, it's driving. And it's not baking, it's baking. Okay, so we know the first area where we have to be careful. If the verb ends in E, we remove the E before adding ing. Good. Now, are there any other places we have to be careful? Yes, there's another rule we need to remember. If the verb ends in ie, then we replace the ie with ying. The baby's not lying on the bed, it's lying on the bed. The tree is not dying, it's dying. And what's the third rule we have to remember? That's right. If the verb ends in vowel plus consonant, the last letter is doubled. You're sitting down. He's swimming. We're running. Okay. So that's the positive form of the present continuous. Great. Now, what do we need to look at next? Correct, the bing bong patwanga. We need to think about the negative form. And what's the word we're going to see? Yes, that's right. The word we always see when we make a negative is not. Okay, so where do we put not? Well, you probably recall that we do the same thing that we do with have got. When we want to make a negative sentence using have got, we put not in the middle. Have got becomes have not got, or haven't got, because we all prefer the short version, don't we? Okay, well, like have got, we do a similar thing when we want to make the present continuous negative. We put not in the middle, between the verb to be and the ing form of the verb. I'm water skiing becomes I'm not water skiing. I'm dancing like a drunk gibbon becomes I'm not dancing like a drunk gibbon. Mabel had a table somewhere, I seem to recall. Mabel, Mabel, intelligent frog, look for the table. It's under that log. Please. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you, Mabel. So, we know the positive and the negative form of the present continuous, but what's all this nonsense about using the present continuous to talk about the future? Well, I'll tell you, and it isn't nonsense. No, Aquila non captat muscas, as Julius Caesar used to say. Probably. Okay, so, until now, we saw that we use the present continuous for something which is happening now. I'm talking. You're watching telly. Chaba is recording the sounds I'm making. Petty is recording my moving image. Muddy is... well, I'm not sure, but it's very important. Okay, but we also use the present continuous for the future, for tomorrow or next week, for example. I'm playing squash tomorrow. Alfredo's not working next week. Now, if we look at those two examples, we can see that there's a plan. I've got a plan to play squash tomorrow. Alfredo's arranged to have next week off. Now, where else did we see the idea of a plan connected to the idea of the future? Can you remember? When we looked at the future, we learned two ways of talking about what is going to happen, didn't we? We learned about will and we learned about going to. When we learned about will, we learned that we use will for situations where we've got no control. This year, I will be 47, for example. It doesn't matter if I want to be 47 or not. I can't control time. So even if I want to stay young and 46, I can't. It's impossible. I don't have any control over this, so we use will. We also use will when we offer something or decide to do something, when the decision is spontaneous, when we decide something when we speak. Now, do you remember when we use going to? Yes, that's right. We use going to when we made a plan in the past to do something in the future, when the decision is not spontaneous but planned. We can also use going to when we can see that something is sure to happen. We can see it coming. We have evidence or proof that something is sure to happen. Do you remember the photo of the plane? You must remember. Here, let me refresh your memory. This is the picture that I'm talking about. Now, do you remember what I suggested the pilots were saying? That's right. One pilot was saying, "Bob, we're going to crash." And the other pilot was saying, "Mike, we're going to die." Good. Well, not good, but okay, good. And they were using the going to form because they can see the evidence, the proof. They're sure that something is going to happen, so they use going to. So, we saw the same idea when we looked at will and going to. Will was used in sentences when the decision to do something was spontaneous, when the decision was made at the time of speaking. Going to, on the other hand, indicated that you had decided earlier. The decision wasn't spontaneous. So, when we use the present continuous to talk about the future, we're using it in the same way as we use going to. We've got a plan for the future. We've arranged to do something. And now, we'll have to wait until our next lesson to continue looking at the future. Don't worry, we're going to look at the future again. I will talk about the future in our next lesson. We're looking at the future in English in our next lesson together. But today, well, we're out of time. Well, that's all we have time for. So there's just a few seconds left. Just enough time for me to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have fun Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. See you later. Bye.